I'm
Yes.
sorry to I'm sorry to interrupt, but real quickly, I noticed everybody's putting their names in the chat link. Are we supposed to do that for attendance?
Not, no, but I mean, I guess they're just, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it.
Folks doing that on
So,
Tuesday.
yeah, and it'll help us too, because I really go down and do a checklist here, when it's not my time. I'll do a checklist to see, who of my students are showing up. So, and Dr. Hamilton does the same thing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So we keep up. Hey, Dr. Lamb, how are you?
Just peachy.
I know you are.
Living the dream.
Yeah.
My internet is kind of flashing in and out right now. My video is not working. I'm working on trying to get another computer up, but
Okay.
my video is not working.
Okay. Well, just try. Even if your video doesn't work, just try to, as long as you can hear, you'll be okay.
I can hear and see fine, but I can just.
Okay. That's fine then. Okay. Everybody make sure you mute yourself. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody. I know everybody's fighting the cold. It's cold everywhere. So I would just say stay safe, and prayers for all of your schools that are dealing with these issues. Sparkle has shared a lot about Durham County, but that may just be the beginning of things. So, we really need to pray hard about all of this. It affects people and it affects our students, and we've just got so much to deal with. But anyway, week 2, session 2 of our coaching, and the purpose of this coaching session is completely to focus on APA 7th edition and how it relates to the work that you're going to be doing in this program. So listen carefully as Dr. Hamilton leads tonight, and Dr. Revis and Dr. Nutting are going to join her. And then Dr. Crawford, if there's something that you need to input at any time, you're welcome to do that. And Dr. Lamb will as well. But the whole night is basically for APA. I would say listen. You're going to get this information, jot down notes. This will help you tremendously as you're working right now, completing APSL Task 1, and really as you go into Task 2, and majorly when you get to Task 3. So it's important that you pay attention. I've already looked at several people's work. APA is an issue already, so we need to pay attention. So with that in mind, Dr. Hamilton, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks. So we're going to start with a PowerPoint where Dr. Revis and I are going to share some APA information with you. We will stop and give you the opportunity to do an error analysis on some things. And then afterwards, Dr. Nutting is going to share with you a checklist that we hope that will be like a cheat sheet for you. And we hope that you will either download that to your computer, or maybe better yet, print it off and use that checklist before you make any submissions to Blackboard, so that you can make sure that you are being very conscientious about the APA items. It's interesting. It's first of all, it's difficult to see your own work, because you know what it's supposed to say, and or you'll miss little nuances of things. And it's also difficult just to be consistent sometimes and to remember it every single time. So with all that said, we are here to help guide you through that. But the checklist that Dr. Nutting's going to review with you at the end, I think is also an invaluable asset to help you with that. The better you learn it now, the more you practice it now, the more you apply it correctly now, the better off you'll be in the rest of this coursework, whether you're a 12-month student or a 20-month student. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and Dr. Revis is going to start us out. And Dr. Revis, you can just tell me when you want me to proceed on to the next slide for us.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just have to say that please do not consider me an expert in APA. I know enough to be dangerous. and there's things that we look for. We are going to hit the high spots, things that you will use a lot in your writing, but you have to, make sure that you're using that checklist, and you have to make sure that you are using your APA manual to check yourself on some things. So these are just some reminders. All right. So in your paper, you need to use the abbreviation at least 3 times before you use an abbreviation. So for example, and you do this a lot in your school profile, if the name of my school is Parsley Elementary, the first time I mention it, I will put in parentheses PES, because I'm going to use that abbreviation at least 3 more times during my school profile. Now, if I don't, then I spell it out every time. Okay, next. Next, we'll talk about levels of headings. In your template, you already have levels of headings, but just as a reminder, your level 1 heading, of course, is the title of your evidence, which we're working on. For example, if you were working on the PSYOP, you're working on the APSIL now. And that's the level 1 heading. The level 2 headings, which you will have, and they're already in the template. It's flush left, bold, title case heading. Title case heading means major words, at least 4 letters or more, are lowercase, and everything else would be uppercase. And then your section labels, which you have 2 here that you use in every task, and that is references and your appendix. Capitalization within text. In 7th edition APA, many things that we have always capitalized or think we need to capitalize, we don't capitalize. So you might want to just do a quick refresher in section 6.13 through 6.21. It gives you many examples of capitalization. So for example, in your first task, you talk about your selection of your PLC members. So if I say Kathy Revis, math teacher, I don't capitalize math teacher, nor do I capitalize math department chair. And not even if I'm the principal, do I capitalize that, or the superintendent. You only capitalize my name. So for example, what I would like for you to do now is let's do your first era analysis. So while you're looking at the screen, what I would like for you to do, and we're just looking over the things that we've talked about, mostly capitalization errors here. I want you to look over that, and I'm going to give you a few, maybe 45 seconds to look over that, and then we will do a correction. Okay?
My second is members with prior teacher or PLC experience.
I did not time myself, but I'm going to go start moving through. Did anybody find anything in the first paragraph that needs to be corrected?
Where it says the letters PLC.
Okay. Now we are assuming PLC selection is our section heading. And what's wrong with that right there? That should be capitalized. That's your section heading, okay? Or your second level heading, excuse me. So I would assume if we're using PLC here that we've already used it. Particularly in our paper, we've used it if we're doing when we talked about the research. But you're right. If we just take this paragraph as a paragraph by in and of itself, then you would need to write out the first time in your paper you use PLC, you write it professional learning communities, parentheses. Okay. Most of the errors occur in your second paragraph. So, Michael, I see you on the screen. What is one error that you see here in this second paragraph?
One error I see on the second paragraph is where it says math teacher. Well, the capitalization of all the subjects except for English.
Yes, all the capitalizations of all those subject teachers should be lowercase except for English. All right. Anyone else reading on down in that paragraph? Roger?
Yes, I see, excuse my camera too. I see, where it says mental health. Shouldn't that be lowercase?
That should be lowercase. Thank you very much. Anything else?
Academic coaches.
Say that one more time.
I'm sorry, my little person is barking in the back, but academic coaches.
Academic coaches, right.
I'd say pretty much everything that's capitalized in the second paragraph, with the exception of PLC and English, should be lowercase.
Okay. For
Or
example,
the first letter of a sentence.
right. Charter schools should not be capitalized. We've already talked about academic coaches, teachers, principal, and department chairs. Even though some of those positions are very important, we don't capitalize them. Okay.
I would like to thank you, Dr. Revis. I would like to add to this that this is for your whole APSL. So if you identify professional learning communities,
Brother Alexander.
can somebody mute everybody for me, please? Can somebody mute for
What's the
everybody,
number?
please? Dr. Stedman, are you able to mute every?
Dr. Hamilton can't hear you.
I don't know. Oh, because when you muted. Okay, you got it. Thank you. Thank you for muting. So when you do task 1 of the APSL and you research professional learning communities, the first time you say professional learning communities, you will put in parentheses PLC, and then you'll say PLC for the rest of the time. And that's going to be hard for you to do. So that's going to apply for task 1, task 2, task 3, task 4, task 5. So you won't write out professional learning communities again, or you won't write out the name of your school again. And that's going to be hard for you to remember and hard for you to do, especially when you're in task 2, 3, 4, etc. So just keep in mind that once you've done it, you've done it. And as much as your gut tells you that you need to write it out, you just leave it like it is. So the next thing we're going to look at is pronouns. Just so you know that in APA 7th edition, they is now a singular pronoun. So that is in APA 7th edition, singular. In APA 7th edition, you are going to refer to yourself in first person. Now, this is not the same as a personal narrative. You are going to say, I convened my PLC, the agenda, we followed the agenda, whatever it is you're going to say, but you're going to refer to yourself in first person. You may see some things in the template. You may see some older examples that refer to the person doing the writing as the candidate. That was APA 6th edition. You will not call yourself the candidate. You will call yourself I. Now, this is first person active writing, and this is not the same as a personal narrative. So this is not a place for you to complain about what you don't have at your school, or this is not a place for, just things that that you just guess or that you infer or that you believe. This is you're going to be doing research. You are going to be doing data analysis. So you're going to be reporting on that. This document needs to be a professionally written, scholarly paper. And that's the way you want it to sound. So even avoid things like my wonderful caring PLC. Well, that might be your perception, but that's not really a scholarly thing to say, or that's not really a proven piece of research. So you'll just say my PLC. So I know it's hard to do, but those flowery words and things that really has no place in this professional writing. So this will be an active voice, and that means that the subject must be doing the action to be active. When the subject comes after the verb, it's often passive. So that is just a way to help you with that. So in figures, everything that you put in as an insert, as a chart, table, graph, you're going to label it as a figure. And again, if you have a figure in task 1 that is figure 1, then when you go to APSL task 2 and you insert another figure, then, or you're probably not going to have a figure in task 1, but let's just say you do. Then when you go to task 2 and you insert another figure, that's figure 2. That is not figure 1. So they go in sequential order, starting with the very first one in your entire APSL, all the way down to the end of your APSL. And so you have several parts of a figure. You have numbers, like, so figure number 1. So you're going to give it that Arabic number, 1, 2, write it out like that. And then you're going to have a title. So underneath the number, double spaced, you're going to have the title of the figure, which is just going to be a brief title of what the figure is. And that's going to be an italicized case. The title should be brief and clear, and both the title and the number should be double spaced. And then below there, below your figure, so you see here's a figure. Figure 1 is going to be in bold, left justified, bold. And then your title is going to be in italics. It's also going to be left justified, and it is no longer in bold. Remove the bold. But you're going to have your figure, whatever you're going to have there. Then you're going to go down below the figure and you're going to put note. Now, please note that the word note is in italics. Note with a capital N, left justified, period. Then remove the italics and give a brief description of what it is that we're seeing here and what this is telling us about the figure. So those are 3 key components to all of your figures, that you have the figure number that's in sequential order and it is in bold. It is left justified. Double space below there, left justified, is the title, not bold, in italics. And then beneath the figure, you have the word note, left justified, in italics, period. Remove the italics and give a brief description. So that's what all of your figures should have. So let's look at this figure, and we're gonna look at this for 45 seconds and tell me what you can figure out is wrong with it. Okay, that's 45 seconds. Someone unmute and tell me what you think.
Personally,
I don't
see
have on my
that,
glasses,
sorry.
but I see that, I assume that's the title there that is centered. It is not to the left. It is not, and it is not bolded. I don't see
Good.
figure. I don't see the word figure bolded with the number. The title is centered. No, and it is not italicized, I don't think. But again, I don't have on my glasses.
It's okay. That's sort of cut off at the top. So on this example, you're right. So figure 1 is at the very bottom instead of at the top. Figure 1 is in italics when it should not be in italics, and it is not in bold, and it should be in bold. So if the title of this one is Kindergarten Transition Program Logic Model based on the literature, where should that title go?
Left
Right
justified.
below right below figure 1 or right below in italics.
Right, below there in italics, that's right, double space below. And of course, all of this would be on top of the figure. And then what are we missing at the bottom?
Figure 1 should read notes.
Right. So this was done in APA 5th edition, and at that time, this was correct. But you are working in APA 7th editions, it's no longer correct. So that's the way it goes. Thank you all. Dr. Revis.
Okay, so here are some frequently used words that you see throughout your program. And on the left-hand side are the singular spellings of those words. And on the right-hand side would be the plural. And, you know, we kind of use them interchangeably, but you need to make sure that when you're talking about data, that's a plural. And then your verb needs to align to that and be plural. I always think of this as it's hard for me to remember this, I'll be honest. So sometimes in my mind, I will say the data sets are, and just put that word sets, the data sets, and that kind of helps me remember that's a plural. And then I need a plural verb. You'll use that a lot throughout your writing this semester. Another one is the difference between curriculum, which is singular, curricula, talking about multiple curricula, and criterion is the singular, criteria is the plural. And appendix is the singular, appendices would be your plural. So those are some frequently used spellings in our paper. All right, in-text citations. You're going to use in-text citations a lot. When you're doing your mini literature review about what is a PLC, you're going to have to use in-text citations. Now, there are two kinds, parenthetical and narrative. So first of all, let's talk about quotes. We want to limit your quotes because if you're just have a series of quoting another author, it's not really your work, it's their work. So what you want to do is you want to try to become masterful at paraphrasing and summarizing. Now, those are higher order thinking skills. So it's something we don't do on a regular basis, but you will get better at it the more you do it. But when we use a quote and use them sparingly, and we're using the exact text, then we call that quoted text, and we must use quotation marks. And we must include an in-text citation with a page number. Now, if your resource doesn't have pages, then you use paragraph numbers. So for example, it would look like Smith, 2019, page 52. And that, of course, is a parenthetical citation at the end of the sentence. Again, paraphrasing and summarizing, make sure that you are doing that. And here's one thing I get a lot. Researchers say, Well, when you say researchers say, that means plural, and I would expect to see multiple researchers cited at the end of that paragraph or sentence, I would say. And if you do use a long quote of 40 words or more, it should be in block quote format with a proper citation, meaning author's last name. We don't use author's first names, author's last name, date, and you must include a page number if it's a direct quote. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit on the next slide about in-text citations. So if we have one or two authors that we're citing and giving reference to, then we're going to just cite it Earl, last name, comma, date. And that's parentheses. That would come at the end of your sentence. And it always has the period at the end of the sentence. Now, if we're doing 3 or more authors, and this is a change in APA 7th edition, 3 or more authors, we don't cite all the authors. We cite the first one listed, black, and then we put the et al., which is Latin for and others. Notice there is no period after the et, but there is a period after all, and then comma, date. And then there's another example, McCartney et al., 2016, comma, page 34. So I know when I look at that last citation that that's a direct quote because he's got a page number. You don't put page numbers in all your citations, only direct quotes. And here's another example. The top one is for authors. We don't use that anymore. Taylor et al., comma, date. Now, again, want to make sure that we remember we don't put authors' first names. Okay, it's only the last name. Author and date, always in that pattern. Author, date. Okay, so let's do another error analysis. And I'm only going to give you about 20 seconds to do this one. I think you can do it in 20 seconds. Look over it, and then we're going to talk about it. Okay, now we're looking mostly here at our citations. All right, let's look at that first citation. Is that one correct? Thumbs up or down? The first citation. Correct? It's correct. Notice again, the period is at the end of the sentence, which means it's after the citation. That citation is at the end of the sentence and part of the sentence. All right, let's look on down. The second sentence. We have multiple authors or multiple authors and multiple sources. Okay. So what about the first citation? Is it correct? Thumbs up or down? Barnett and Taylor, 2009. It is correct. What about the second citation? And I separate, if I have more than one source or resource, I separate that with a semicolon. Early, Pinata, Taylor, and Cox, 2001. Is that correct? Thumbs up or down? No, it's not. Robin, why is it not correct?
Because there are more than 2 authors, so you need to use the et al.
Very good. So it should just be early, et al., period after all, comma, 2001. All right, and the last one. Is that correct? Thumbs up or thumbs down? We haven't really talked about a resource such as this. I would say that one is correct if there is no author. If this is a publication by a collective group, the National Education Goals Panel, then that would be correct. If there is no author or set of authors that wrote this.
Correct.
Any questions about that? You will use these in-text citations a lot.
Oh, I have a question.
Sure.
So if we wanted to use Pinata and Cox 1998 again in the paper, would you just use the year if it comes like in the next sentence, or would you put the entire thing next?
You have to put the entire thing. In APA 7th edition, it's always author, comma, date. Okay. Now, if we use it narratively means that citation is part of a sentence. For example, usually you will start out with, according to Hamilton and Revis, then you put Hamilton and Revis, spell out and, capitalize both of our names, and then the date is in parentheses. That is called a narrative in-text citation. You can use either way, is okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
If you're summarizing and doing more than one sentence about the text, do you need to cite every sentence or just at the end, or how does that work?
Well, there's such a thing as over-citation. If you're starting your paragraph and you're starting, let's say the first sentence, and it's going 3 sentences in that paragraph, consecutive sentences, then you only cite it at the end of those third sentence. But now, if you cite something from one author in the first 3 sentences, then you go to another author, you got to cite that author, okay, because it's a new author. And then you come back to that first author, you cite it again.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
I have one question as well. When you said we don't use their first names, in the instant, because I ran into this when I was citing a book, I had the same last name, but different first names. And do I just say the last name twice, or can I then put like maybe their first initial to like justify it was a difference?
First initial.
Okay, thank you.
First initial. Good question.
Well, but like if it was Hamilton 2015 and Hamilton 2016, and one was Robin Hamilton and one was Danny Hamilton, then you would still just put like Hamilton in the year, because then when you go down to the reference section at the end, you can find out which one it is by the date. But if we both had the same date, then you would go to that first initial.
What if their first initials are the same?
I meant like in the same source. Like, let's say the book itself was written by 2 different authors, but with the same last name. So, for example, like Dufour and his wife, like Richard and Rebecca, you would
That's
cite them.
Dufour and Dufour.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Dufour 2004, and then down in the reference, it spells it out in the reference section. It's
Okay.
just in the in-text citations in your paper that it's not going to be spelled out.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Y'all have great
Hello,
questions.
this is Roger. I have a quick question. I noticed on the PowerPoint when they had the 3 different citations, it went from the earliest year to the latest year. Is that necessary? Okay, thank you.
And even, Roger, like if you are giving demographics of your school in your school profile, and you're giving like percentages of white, African-American, Hispanic, whatever you're giving percentages of, you start with the smallest and increase to the largest.
Oh, wow, awesome. Thank you for telling me that.
You're welcome. Anything
I'm
else?
sorry. Can you repeat that one more time? You start with the smallest and go to the largest. Is that what you said? Okay.
Yeah.
In-text data lists go from small to large if I wanted to try to put that in my brain.
That's right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Thank
I have another question. In some of the instances of things that we've read and that have been put in, they don't have dates. I only have retrieval dates. So next to the author's name, do I put the retrieval date? Solution Tree is a big one. I believe I found that one on.
Well, if you're talking about an article like off of a website, maybe.
Yes.
You would not put the date you retrieved it. If you can't find a date for the specific article that you're citing, then you would do no date, n.d. Okay. That's my answer. Dr. Hamilton or somebody else jump in there if that's wrong. That's what
Well,
I'm thinking.
I think it depends because it could be a web-based citation. It just depends on what it is. So we can look at that one-on-one as it comes up.
I have an example of something that I think is like what she's talking about, like on our school website. If we're talking about our school's mission statement or something like that, we don't have the date that it was put on the website.
Or the date that it was created. You don't have that. You don't know that.
I wouldn't see a copyright date either.
I think we're really getting in the weeds. I would just say if there's nothing dated on the website with a specific piece of information that you're wanting, I would do no date, n.d. and move on.
I agree.
Okay, Dr. Hamilton, are you going to do the little video?
I am going to move right on to the next part. This is the references and appendices. And so at the end of your paper, so at the end of task 1, you're going to have a reference section and you're going to have an appendix. And in your reference section, this is where all of your in-text citations have full citations in that reference section. Your reference section is going to be cumulative, so it'll be in alphabetical order. At the end of task 5, you'll probably have several pages of references. Everything in your reference section should have a corresponding entry as an in-text citation somewhere in your APSL. Everything in your in-text references in your APSL should have a corresponding entry in the reference section at the end of your work. When you're doing your peer reviews, this is a great check and balance for you, for each other, to make sure that everything that's referenced, cited as in text also has the corresponding reference and vice versa. Then, for example, at the end of task 1, you should have at least one appendix, and that appendix is going to be your email artifact where your principal gave you permission to establish a professional learning community. So when you talk in section 1, task 1, about your principal giving you permission to create a professional learning community, then you're going to say, see Appendix 1. And that is going to be in parentheses. The C, S-E-E, is going to be lowercase. Appendix, A, sorry. See Appendix A, I shouldn't have said 1. Appendices are always alphabet letters. So you're going to say C, lowercase S-E-E, appendix, capital appendix A. Then after your reference section, you're going to put in a page break, and in the center justified, bold, you're going to say appendix A, and that's where you're going to insert your screenshot of your permission from your principal to establish a PLC. Then you'll put in another page break because Appendix B, whether that's in Task 1 or Task 2 of the APSL, every appendix needs to start at the beginning of a new page at the end of your paper. Appendices, just like figures, go in sequential order. So the first one that's mentioned is going to be A, the second one's going to be B, and so forth. Now back to your reference section. In your reference section, you do have to have hanging indents. And in the Gardner Webb Library, there is a video that will help you with hanging indents. I'm pretty sure I turned on the sound, but I just want to make sure I did. Sorry, before I do this. Yes, it's shared. And I want you to watch this video. It's really quick, but very helpful. And again, it is available to you on the Gardner Webb University's library webpage. And you can go to how to create a hanging indent.
This video will show you how to create a hanging indent for a citation in Microsoft Word. Begin by highlighting your citation. In the paragraph section of the Microsoft Word toolbar, click the expander icon to pop up the full paragraph editing box. In the second section, click the drop-down menu under the special heading. Choose Hanging and click OK. Now your citation has a hanging indent.
So that's how you create a hanging indent. And I'm having a struggle bus here. And if you can watch that all you want and practice all you want. It's right there on the Gardner Webb page for you. So that makes it easy. So that is that. Then that your reference section is double spaced and it does have a hanging indent. We talked about that reference versus the in-text citation. So again, your reference entry would be here on this example right here that we have. Let me make that. You see Alexander, PA 2018 period, and then it gives the whole reference. And so if it was a parenthetical citation, like at the end of a statement, you would put parentheses Alexander, 2018 in parentheses. And if that's the end of the sentence, then you would put a period. Or if it was a narrative citation, like you were going to say Alexander stated that PLCs, blah, 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 then you're just going to say Alexander. And then the only thing that goes in parentheses is the year. And of course, you wouldn't have a period there because that's like in the middle of the sentence or the beginning of a sentence or something of that nature. So that is what that is. And then here we go. Let's see if you can have about 15 seconds to look and see what's wrong with this. All right, let's look at the heading, references. Tell me about references. Is that correct? That's the heading of your reference section?
Should be in the middle.
It should be in the middle. What else?
Is all
It should be
capital?
bolded.
Right, it should be bold and it doesn't need to be all capital. It just needs to have the R capitalized. Good. All right, the first submission there.
Professional spelled wrong.
Yes, professional is spelled wrong. Now let's talk about that. I did that on purpose. Really, I did. What lets us know, even if we don't know how to spell professional, what lets us know that something's wrong right there?
That squiggly line.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have red squiggly lines and blue squiggly lines. When you have a squiggly line, please check it out. It might not need a change, but more than likely it does. Those little squiggly lines are so helpful to you in your work. Please pay attention to the squiggly lines. Thank you. All right, what else?
Should be a period after 2015.
And what else does 2015 need?
Should be in parentheses.
Parentheses.
Right, good, 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 good. Okay, what else is wrong here?
No hanging
The
indent.
hanging indent.
The hanging indent, great. And one more thing.
Should
Okay.
leadership through community be lowercase?
It's not double spaced.
It's not double spaced.
Oh, yeah, it's not double.
It's not double spaced, and leadership through community should be lowercased as well. Yes. Correct. Yep. Good. Okay, what about number 2?
I got a question about that. So you said building leadership through community should be lowercase except for the B?
Building is gonna be capitalized, but that's all.
Right. Okay,
That's another hard thing to do.
yeah.
No period after 10.
No period where, oh, okay.
Yeah, at the end.
Mhm.
Shouldn't there be a period after journal, not a comma? I might be wrong.
I think that is a comma right there.
That's a comma.
Mhm.
Shouldn't we remove their first initials as well?
Not in the reference section.
No comma after the first J, between the J and and it's double spaced.
You do need that comma, and it is double
Oh.
spaced. It needs to be double spaced. Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need to have a comma between JT and the year 2010?
Yes, you do.
So quick question. Earlier you mentioned DeFore and DeFore. So here, what is the difference there when you said earlier to write out the and? Was that in text or?
So that was when we were talking about in the narrative, right? So if it was a narrative citation, you would say DuFour, AND, DuFour, parentheses, 2004, close parentheses, blah, blah, blah. But if it was a parenthetical, you would say DuFour, ampersand, DuFour, comma, 2004, all in the parentheses. If it's inside the parentheses, it's an ampersand. If it's a narrative citation, it's an AND. But down here is a different situation because this is the reference section where you're really telling people where they can really go find this and read it themselves if they want to.
Dr. Hamilton, between the 2 entries, is that double spaced?
It's probably more than double, but it should just be double is what it should be. Yes. Between and within the entries. Thank you, Dr. Stedman. Between and within should be double spaced.
Everything is double spaced.
Unless the template has it as single space.
Right,
then it should-
right. Unless the template does, yes. But when they do the reference section, everything is double spaced.
Yes,
And
exceptions to everything.
I have a question too. So I went to the APA.org website, just double check myself. And unless it's changed, the colon, the K-12 after the colon, shouldn't the K be capitalized, or did we already say that?
Yes, the K should be capitalized right there. Mhm.
Okay, so I just want to double check.
No, you're right. We overlooked that. Thank you.
Should there be an ampersand between the J, behind the comma, the J and before Guthrie?
Yes, ampersand.
So for the second one, closer to the end, don't we need the letter P, a lowercase p and a period before 16 and before 10? Like I would imagine those are page numbers, but did we say that they were page numbers?
Those are page numbers. You know that's what it is. I don't know if you had Dr. Revis, Dr. Stedman, anybody else? No, do you have to have the P there in the reference section? I'm not sure.
I'm on the APA website with like a reference sample. I put a link to in the chat, and it doesn't have the P before the page numbers in the citation.
Yeah, I didn't think
Right.
it did. So, but in your narrative text, you will when you're doing the in-text citation.
Dr. Hamilton,
Yes, sir.
fix professional.
I'm not fixing it. It's that way for a reason, so that they can learn about red and blue squiggly lines. Thank you.
Oh, so I messed up, and I apologize for stepping
No,
in.
it's okay.
I will now get back in my lane.
Okay.
Do the page numbers have to be in numerical order or in order that you use them in citations?
So let's just say that this Cambria and Guthrie that you used this, I would just use the range of pages that you used throughout your work. Like if you use something from page 16 and something from page 28, 16, 23, and 28, and you used it 3 different times, I wouldn't put in different entries with that because I would just give the whole span of it in the reference section.
And Dr. Hamilton, I think something important, you stressed it, but I think that they need to focus on this. What you do in the body of your paper is different than what you do in your reference section.
In the washing machine.
Right. It's not going to be the same way. So you need to focus your thinking differently when you're doing your body of your paper. This is how I do citations. When I do my reference section, this is how I do citations.
Thank you, Dr. Stedman.
Dr. Hamilton, can I ask a question about citations? So I have some information from an AP at my school, but I'm referencing her. How do I do an in-text and a reference at the end of my paper when I'm doing a person?
So in APA, there is a specific way to cite a personal communication. Just use that.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
I said in APA, there is a specific format for personal communication, and something like that would fall under personal communication.
We can't hear you, Mandy. So I need to go to the APA guide and look specifically for personal communication because it's just bigger than what we can discuss. I see.
Yeah, it's literally there's a format for personal communication. If you interview somebody, if you got information that you're going to cite based on that interview, or in a conversation that may have not been an interview, but you're going to cite it, then you would just cite that as a personal communication.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Crawford.
All right, thank you all for those great questions. Okay, Dr. Revis.
All right, so let's talk about numbers. You will have numbers.
Before you get started, let me point this out. I've looked at 4 work that has come in for task 1 already. 3 out of the 4 numbers was a problem. So pay attention to this.
A couple of things, rules you have to remember here. Numbers 0 to 9 are always written in word form. 10 and above are going to be as numerals. Okay? And we never begin or end a sentence using numerals. All right, 0 to 9, word form. Everything else, numerals. Do not begin or end a sentence with numerals. Okay? Spacing, this is a little different. It's hard for me to get used to.
Dr. I'm sorry, it's Crawford. Can I just add one more thing back to the numbers?
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, the other thing you want to do is you want to be consistent with what you're doing. And so let's say you've got a sentence where the numbers 17, 21, and 58 are going to be referenced in that sentence. If you start with using the numerical form of 17, be consistent with the other 2 or 3 numbers that you have in that sentence. You don't want to go back and forth between numeric 17, word, and 24, whatever the number is, and then go back to being specific. Now, if you go between 17 and 2, then yeah, you want to follow the rules, but try to be consistent throughout your sentence and or paragraph as you're writing out numbers. Same thing with percentages when you get to that. Sorry.
Okay, with spacing, remember in 7th edition, 1 space following punctuation. Now, in APA 7th edition, you have some options about your font, but Gardner-Webb Education Department requires Times New Roman 12 point. Now, let me take a little tangent here. You need to be writing in Word. I know that a lot of people use Google Docs, but when you try to use a Google Doc and then transfer it to Word for your submissions, sometimes that gets all messed up. So try to use Word. There is a free student Word, Microsoft Word suite that is available to you. And it's on our homepage. I believe we'll need to look at that. I believe it's on your homepage that you can download and use. Okay, and lastly, let's assess this document. Now, trying to think about all the things we've covered, let me give you just a short amount of time to look through these few sentences. Okay, let's take sentence by sentence. The first sentence, any errors there?
I would
you
change.
capitalize. You didn't mention what PLCs are.
Okay. Assuming that you've not already established that acronym, if this is the first time using it, you would write it out. What
I
else
would-
is wrong with that first sentence?
Would you put a
Can't start with a
percentage?
number.
Should have started with a number.
Starting with a numeral. Correct.
Also, we see here that Kathy Revis in 2020, that should say Revis, and 2020 should be in parentheses.
Thank you. No first name.
There's also,
Revis, parentheses 2020. There's something else wrong with that second sentence.
there's two
Too many
spaces after the
spaces.
period.
3 should be written out in Word form.
Okay. I think Michael pointed out it looks like there's 2 or 3 spaces after that first sentence, between the first sentence and second sentence. So you want to tidy that up. And then I heard the comment about the numeral 3 should be written out.
Oh, yeah.
There is
And
something
meaningful should
else
be
wrong.
lowercase.
You don't need a
Meaningful.
comma before that.
You don't actually need the name of the article or wherever you're reading from in this sentence.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
That is a novice mistake. We think we have to cite the article or the book. You don't do that. That's what your reference section is for. Revis, parentheses 2020, stated that PLCs should occur 3 times a week with administrators in attendance. Very good. All right, let's go look at the next sentence.
Too many spaces after the period.
Correct.
Date is the wrong tense. Right?
There, thank you. Thank you. Well, now, I guess we could argue over that a little bit. One data source, we got that one there, but I think of data, even if it's referenced as one data source, that source would have multiple data points. So I think it needs to be a plural verb. And the last sentence.
Dr. Revis, and even
Yes.
with that sentence, remember, sometimes it's like Dr. Hamilton's or Dr. Revis said, you could say data sources are examined, and that would be correct.
That would make it clear, number one. And number two, it would take out all your questions then. Anything in that last sentence that needs to be corrected?
Should say I am now leading the PLC instead of the candidate is now leading.
Yes. You do not refer to yourself in third person. I am now leading the PLC. Very good. Very good, guys.
I got a quick question about that. When you were talking in that first sentence, it said something about, Dr. Revis stated, in our paper, can we do, like, I wrote a sentence that said, according to DeFore, is that acceptable to do that?
Sure.
Okay.
When you talk about works that have already been completed, you always talk about them in the past tense. According to DeFore, remember there's a parentheses with a date, da 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 da. But anyway, his work has already happened, so we would talk about his work. The verb would be it would be past tense. Anything else? Guys, you will pick up on this and it will become a second nature to you. Now, you'll miss some things every now and then. We all do. And there's some things I have to look up. I have to look up a lot of things, not just some things, a lot of things. But Dr. Nutting is going to share with you a checklist of the common things that you need to look over before you submit your work. Dr. Nutting?
Thank you. Hey, everybody. If you haven't gotten your copy of this book yet, I use mine a lot. So this is a really good thing for you to have. But I'm getting ready to share something with you that's going to make you really happy. And this is a good way to end the meeting here. Okay, so if you go to Blackboard, and so here I am on your 601 class, or this is actually Dr. Hamilton's class, but so scroll down and go to APA format materials. And this is, you're going to be so happy when you see this document. You go to APA 7th edition editing checklist. It looks like this. If any of you are like me, I just like to print things out sometimes. This is it's absolutely a cheat sheet. And I would recommend you making a copy of it and going through it every time right before you get ready to submit something. I've been, working with Dr. Hamilton on when she's grading some of her papers, and it's really interesting when she's grading because she's so good at it. She picks up your mistakes really quickly. She's just like, oh, this is here. This is wrong. And you wouldn't believe how many times, even after we tell you guys about this, that we're really helping you and holding your hand. So make sure you take this and do a little check mark every single time before you turn something in. And that will help you from having to do lots and lots of edits and attempts at your assignments, because these guys are really good at checking your APA. You'll see on this checklist, it's 2 sheets. And just to tell you how easy this is, the very first 2 things, the first thing it says is in-text citations have a corresponding entry in the reference section. And then the next check mark says entries in the reference section have corresponding in-text citation. So basically what this checklist is telling you from the very beginning is make sure if it's up here, that it's down here, and then go back and make sure that if it's down here, that it's up here. So it's kind of just a really great way for you to check your APA. If not, and you need to go to the book, I always just start in the back. When you asked about personal communication, you can go straight to the back. It pulls right up with personal communication. So those are 2 things that should be helpful to you. And that's all I had to share tonight. So I had an easy part. So.
And Dr. Nutting, thank you. If I were you, I would do like Dr. Nutting said. I would have to print me off several copies for every task you do. I would have my individual checklist. I would put task 1 of the app, so I would use that, and do it 1 for task 2, and do like Santa Claus does. You make a list and you check it twice before you send it to us. Okay.
And if you're lucky enough to have a partner that's willing to help you, this is the kind of thing that it's so easy to understand that I would give this to my husband and say, here's my paper, here's this checklist, look and see. Because sometimes after you've worked on it for a while, you just don't see those things. So if you're lucky enough to have somebody in your life that's willing to look through those for you, that is a really great thing to do also.
And Dr. Stedman, can I have one more second? If everybody will think about everything we've talked about tonight, and I want you to think of one thing that you're going to commit to right now that you have learned that you're going to make sure every single time you do with consistency. And I want you to write that one thing in the chat for me now. I'm watching the chat. Hanging indent. And remember, you can watch that video, the APA checklist. That's a good one. That hanging indent video is on the Garden Web Library webpage. Yeah, one period after a punctuation. That is going to be hard. 0 through 9, yes. Checklist, yes. Numbers and spacing. Checklist, use it. First person, active, yes. And that capitalization. Figures and headings, yes. Figures, headings, notes. Yep. Yep, remember not to capitalize principal, coach. The parentheses, least to greatest when you're listing percentages and things, yes. Use I.
Dr. Hamilton, while they're doing this, remember, we've already introduced you, I think Dr. Hamilton has, we've talked to you about peer reviews. Everything that they've told you, this is what you use in your peer reviews when you're looking at your peer reviews as well. It helps your peer and it also helps you in the process.
I can't hear you.
What'd you say, Bill? Bill, you said something, but I didn't hear what you said, and you're on mute now. All right, Dr. Stedman, turning it back over to you.
And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lamb to bring last words before we close out tonight.
Thank you. Thank you all, faculty, for a wonderful presentation. You're helping us for when these folks matriculate to the doctoral program more than you'll ever know. It'll help them now with their state assessors, but it'll also help them down the road. And hopefully one of these days soon. Now, this was me and one of mine last month. And hopefully one of these days, it'll be me and you. That's yes, I am Santa Claus at Christmas. I'll start in July. But you can see, now you can tell from looking at that fellow right there, he's not too smart, but he followed the direction. Frank followed the directions and he learned this stuff. And if any of you know Frank, he's out in Stanley County. And well, of course, if you do, you can tell Frank, I said he's not too smart, but I don't have to tell him, he knows that. But if Frank can make it, all of you can make it. He's the bell cow. He's the benchmark. Frank was just barely high enough to ride this ride, but he learned APA and he got his doctorate. He did a great job. So it's going to stand you in good stead down the road. Now, the other thing, I had a question about TaskStream. TaskStream's not hooked to anything. It's a private program, costs $150. We will start probably Monday buying those accounts. Now, the reason why we're not going to do it over the weekend is when we buy you the account, you will get an email from Watermark. That is the parent company of TaskStream. It will say Watermark. It may be in your spam. It may be in your junk folder. It will come to your Garden Web email. Now, here's the problem. You got 48 hours once that thing comes to register your account. Now, if you don't, we'll have to have them send you another link. If you've had a previous TaskStream account, it will be a problem, but we'll just have to work through that. Now, next thing. When you get that email, you go in and register your account. Don't be that person that decides, well, I don't like the username and password that they assigned me. I'm going to change it. Don't think you're hurting the team. Use the password and the username that they assigned you for right now. Later on down the road, if you feel the need to change it, you can go in and do that. But I won't be able to help you if you lose it because I won't know it. We assign you a username and password to start with. I still have my original one from, when did we start, Dr. Stedman? 2010, 14 years ago. I've still got mine. it was either keep it the same or have to write it somewhere on my body so I'd remember it. And I didn't want to do that. So I just kept mine the same for the last 14 years. I've never been hacked. Everything's good. But you will get an email from Watermark. I will send you an email myself to say, start looking for it. I don't want to do it over the weekend because the weekend counts as well. So we'll probably send those out either Monday or Tuesday of next week. And if we get them out, then I'll work with you next Thursday on TaskStream. If not, I'll work with you on Qualtrics. All right. We appreciate you being with us tonight. Be looking, I'll let you know Monday when to expect that email from Watermark. Please register your account and do not change your username and password. Not for a while yet until we can get you all established.
And Dr. Lamb,
back to Dr. Stedman.
You and Dr. Crawford and Dr. Hamilton also be prepared to talk to them about EVOS next week as well.
Yep. If we don't do TaskStream, we'll do EVOS and Qualtrics and that kind of stuff.
Between the next 2 weeks, those are the main things: Qualtrics, EVOS, and TaskStream. That's going to be the next two sessions.
That is correct.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Dr. Stedman?
Yes.
Really quickly, I have a personal question. The comprehensive needs assessment that we have to do for task 2, I'm conducting my meeting tomorrow and I have all of my data and stuff, but is there any type of reference or template that you guys could suggest for that?
There is not one. Dr. Revis, Dr. Hamilton, can you suggest anything other than
was answering a chat. Say what?
She's working on her comprehensive needs assessment in task 2.
Okay.
I'm looking for if there's any sort of template or reference that I could utilize or kind of make my own from. Do you have any ideas for that?
Your school should have done a comprehensive need assessment in some form or fashion. Could you model after what your school is using or your school system?
Well, I asked about it and she said she didn't really have a template for it that I could.
Are you in North or South Carolina?
North Carolina.
Okay, well then the CNA is going to be an Industar.
Industar,
So
okay.
if you look in Industar where the school improvement plan is housed, the CNA is its own section. I would just look at that, and if you're looking to model after something, I would take a look at that.
I as a teacher, I don't typically have access to that, do I? That has to be a
You don't have to have
principal thing.
access. It's public data. So
Oh,
even
okay.
On the website.
even if you went to the guest website, if they didn't want to give you the administrative access, the one way like parents in the community use as part of your school webpage, you should have a guest access to the school improvement plan itself, and part of the school improvement plan is the CNA.
Okay, I do have a school improvement plan template.
Yeah, Becca, call me when we get through. Give me about 5 minutes, but call me, and I'll talk to you about it. Okay, while I'm processing the video.
And a comprehensive needs assessment might be bigger than the scope of the APSL is what I'm thinking.
Okay. It just said in the
okay,
instructions that we were doing the comprehensive needs assessment.
I'm sorry, not Becca, Michelle. You call me and I'll talk to you about it. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
I have a question. You made reference several times to as you move through the different tasks, you can use the same abbreviations. When we are submitting task 2, for an example, are we submitting task 2 in the same template that we submitted task 1?
So you can do that one of two ways. Some students have done it one task at a time, and then when you get to task 5, you have to combine them. My suggestion, just to keep life easier, would be to use the same tablet, template, and just fill in it as you go. We get that when we get to
Dr.
template.
Crawford, Dr. Hamilton and I have told them differently. We want them submitted one task at a time, and that's for review purposes. It becomes confusing with the peer reviews, and when we're having to send word back for editing, it becomes, so we've told them to submit one task at a time, and we'll tell them when to combine it at the end.
Okay.
So that one task will go in the template that have all the tasks, just delete the tasks that are not being submitted, or is there a different template for each task?
It's the same template. You just will put task 1 in it, submit it, task 2 in it the second time, and submit it, then task 3.
Okay.
You follow the template. It shows you exactly what you need in Blackboard, okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, other questions? If not, we will see you on Tuesday.
So I had a quick question. So magically somehow throughout the school year for this school profile, the numbers for some of the administrative positions that are on the, I can't think, school report card are wrong. So like when they did the school report card, one person was in a dean role and has now moved to an AP role. Do I go based off of the numbers that are in the report card, or what I know?
Use what's current in your building.
Okay.
Sometimes the report card can sometimes be a lagging indicator, and things change between when the report card is officially posted and what happens when you open school, you know, a few months later. So just use what's most current.
Okay.
Three quick APA questions if there's none others. First question, for percent, is it symbol, or can we use symbol, or do we have to spell out? Are both authorized?
You can use both, just be consistent.
Roger.
Unless it's at the end of a sentence or the
Unless it's
beginning
the end
of a
sentence.
sentence.
Check. If in the references section, I've come across some resources where I don't have a month of publication, do we just put year and leave the month part blank?
That's what I would suggest.
Yes.
Roger. And if you said this earlier in the figure section, I apologize. When we get to the note part below the figure, is that double spaced or single spaced?
Double.
Check. Thank you much, ma'am. And all.
John.
And guys, this will be in your Blackboard shell later on tonight, this recording. Okay, Michelle, just hang on.